Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again with another Experiences Living Abroad. I am here with Maggie. How are you, Maggie?
I'm just wonderful. I can't complain. Thank you.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So, Maggie, tell our viewers, where are you from?
I am originally from Chicago in the U.S.
And where are you currently staying?
Stockholm, Sweden. But I've
And
also lived in Munich, Germany.
okay. So tell us about those voyages, which initially got you to Germany and where you are now.
Well, basically, I worked for a company in Chicago, and that company was purchased by a European-based company who invited me out to Sweden because I had a particular skill that they were very interested in.
Mm.
And so I started coming part-time. It was the best time of my life. It was like I was coming here for 3 months and then I would go home for 3 months. And then they offered me an opportunity to come for a year, which fell through. But by that time I was like, yeah, my kids are grown. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going on a job search, got lucky, found a job, and I have been here ever since.
So talk to me about this skill set. What are these particular skills that you have that
I have a particular set of skills.
right,
No,
right.
no, but no, I work in software development, and
Okay.
so I've been working as a QA manager for the bulk of my career, and automation became a special skill. So test automation is a very hard skill set to find
Mm-hmm.
and for companies to hire, and so it's kept me marketable.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point because I think with all this transition of people trying to move out the country, a lot of
Yes.
people say like, where am I going to find work? And I think right now, especially with COVID going on, enhance your skills, get more certifications, get whatever you need to make yourself more marketable. So that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, actually, I try to do pro bono, help people with interviewing skills and helping them with their CVs and resumes. And that's one of the things that I tell them. I said, if you're going to live abroad, one of the best things that you can do is get yourself a highly marketable skill if possible. Everybody's not into the technology field, but if you are, science and technology will keep you either as an entrepreneur or well employed.
And so when you said the initial job offer fell through and you started going on a job search, what were some of the things you did, or what were some of the tools you used to do an international job search?
Well, what I did, this was back in 2007, so monster.com was the thing then. Now you would use other search engines, but basically I would just keep the filter on any jobs that came through daily. I would check daily, and I would look for jobs that fit my background. And I'm a person where it doesn't have to fit it 100%. And so I started applying for these jobs, and I would do telephone interviews. That's how it started, as telephone interviews. And so one of the things that I learned is when you are the job seeker, it's not that easy to get people to pay for traveling costs or relocation costs. So you have to sort of be prepared, if you're passionate about doing it, to front the cost yourself. And so what I ended up doing is, once I got 2 or 3 people who were really interested in meeting again, but weren't really, wanting to put up the cost, I flew myself to Sweden. So the moment I knew I was coming to Sweden, other people were interested. I ended up in a 7-day period having 11 job interviews.
That is super smart. Okay.
So, and because they knew I was here, and because they only knew I was here for 1 week, they took advantage of the time. So I spent the entire week literally pounding the pavement, going from job interview to job interview. And by the time the week was done, I ended up with 3 job offers to choose from.
Nice. That's beautiful. I love that. So initially you said you were first in Germany. So tell us about that job and your experience in Germany and what.
Yeah, actually, I came to Sweden first.
I came to Sweden
But
first.
after living in Sweden for a long while, I was kind of at a crossroads where I was thinking of going back to the US. Okay, that was when we were at the previous administration. So in my job search, the job market in the US, especially in Chicago, still wasn't really bountiful.
Okay.
And a recruiter reached out. And that's another good tip for people who are looking to live abroad, is to sort of network with recruiters. And so a recruiter reached out for an opportunity in Munich, Germany. And I was like, I'm not doing nothing. Might as well interview. What can it hurt? And then I got the job. So I ended up, and they paid for relocation costs. So I ended up relocating to Munich, Germany for 2 years until I decided I didn't like Germany. It was a bit too lonely. I didn't know the language. And I decided I'm going back to the US or I'm going back to Sweden. And I ended up with another 3 job offers and came back to Sweden.
Ooh, so you did the whole the whole transition. I love it. So, man, okay. So when
I got around.
Right. So when you kind of in that crossroads where you were like, you're not going to go back to Chicago and you're looking for some other opportunities. So when the recruiter reached out to you, how did the recruiter know about you? Were you online? How did you connect with recruiters that will look for international work for you?
LinkedIn is actually a really good source. And one of the things that I learned to do is if I'm in a job market, I would change my heading to like seeking this type of opportunity. Okay. And so recruiters will then kind of contact you. Plus, I always had recruiters that I was connected with, and I could reach out to them and say, hey, do you have anything? I'm in the market. And so usually I would say after the first sort of going through monster.com, I've never had to go through that again. I've always had my network of recruiters that sort of connected me to good opportunities. Mm-hmm. So when I came back to Sweden, I was very lucky. The company paid for my travel to come and interview here in Sweden. They paid for a little bit of the relocation cost, and I moved back to Sweden from Munich, Germany. So really recruiters and sort of connecting with them through LinkedIn was a good way of doing it.
Awesome. So we've been hearing from everyone who's getting jobs out of the country. Everyone's talking about LinkedIn. I'm going to tell you, I'm completely just don't know anything about LinkedIn. I mean, I know it exists, but I've never messed with it. So you said you changed your title to say, was it the actual job position or even the countries you were interested in when you changed your title?
Just the type of opportunity I was looking for. So I didn't mention the country, but you know, in your LinkedIn profile, they can see, like, if you have like a summary of your work experience, they can see where it's been. And so I was getting recruiters calling me about opportunities in the US and Germany and Sweden. And so as we were sort of changing administrations, I'm like, no, that ain't looking good. So I came back. I came back to Sweden.
Got it. So 2 things. I want to break up your life between Germany and the isolation, because it's funny. I just did a video on, kind of establishing community and how big that is in regards to you settling in the country you choose. So when you say that Germany was isolated or that you wanted to move out of Germany, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's kind of 2 stories. There's one where I sort of got introduced to Sweden, and then there was a very different experience going to Germany. So Germany is a country I had never been to before. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any, no, I take that back. I did have one friend there, one former colleague, but that's it. And he was living in a different city. So when I went, I was like, why not? So I went over there, didn't really know anything about the country at all. But they had a wonderful HR person who sort of navigated me as far as how to find a place to live, how to get a bank account and to get a visa, things like that. But Germany is a country where they barely speak English. The only time they speak English is within the company itself, if their business language is English. But people will still conversate in their native tongue. So because I didn't really know anybody, and it was, I didn't know the language, and of course, I picked it up faster. I picked up German faster than I picked up Swedish. And that was because I was forced to, because anytime I left the company, you were forced to, you go to the grocery store, the bank, whatever, and you were forced to kind of try to conversate in German. So I did ended up meeting friends there, but still I didn't have that same foundation like I had here in Sweden and in the US. And so with the language being so limiting, and everything was in German, TV was in German, radio was in German, you were just so disconnected from having a home base that I decided that no, I don't like it. And the German people are very nice, but they were a little bit also kind of cold. And so it was just very hard. And they dating was very hard. So I just decided, no, I don't like this,
Okay.
And the work environment was they're very procedural. They're very strict about their procedures. And so that also became very kind of suffocating. So for me, it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah. And so Sweden, talk to us about your experience in Sweden.
Well, when I first came to Sweden part-time, that's when I started building up that foundation of friends. I also went to school at the same time, so I attended Folkuniversitet, where I could start learning Swedish. And there I met a group of friends where we were friends for a good while. So I ended up having this family friendship dynamic when I came here. So before I actually moved here full-time, I actually had a great base of friends that kind of just still grew. You met people through them. And I have to say, knock on wood, I've never been alone for the holidays. I've never been alone for special occasions, because I had that network of friends from school, and then people I've kind of befriended as I went from, because I've had more than one job. So I kind of met people along the way. And so it was a little bit different experience. I had an opportunity to learn Swedish, build friends, and Swedes sort of pride themselves on being bilingual, and they speak English. So you also didn't feel very isolated from the language, because you could always find somebody to converse with in English as well.
And that's a good point. Just to stress the community again, because I said that was one of my mistakes that I didn't make when I went to Portugal. And then I ended up meeting some people and feeling at home. And even for those introverts, because I am an introvert, and I think the assumption is I can just move to the other side of the country and just, enjoy the peace and quiet. But we're also human. So there is going to be this need for human interaction. And I just feel like setting that up will just really change your experience. And I know one of the points you touched on was going to a university. That's like an instant way to find friends. So if anyone is going to a country and maybe the online forums aren't working, or you can't, just go to the university and pick up a language. And usually those courses, and they won't break the bank. They're very affordable.
In some of the countries, they offer the language classes for free as part of getting integrated into their society. So it's just a matter of you investing your time. So building that community is very important. I also kind of learned having a pet help. So in Germany, that's how I actually met a friend that I could hang out with, is because I would go walking with the dog, and then I would meet somebody to hang out with, and we would walk our dogs together. So pets are a really good way of breaking the ice, especially with people who are, believe it or not, who are more reserved than maybe being introverted in the US is. So, yeah.
And did you have your pet, did you travel with your pet, or did you get your pet out of the country?
I had my pet here in Sweden, and so the pet came with me to Germany and to the US, and then we came back to Sweden. And so, yeah, she has her own little passport too.
That's super cute. I would imagine that the pet also helps with just the initial loneliness as well.
Yeah, if you're living by yourself, like a lot of people that I have met, they either come for work or they're love refugees. That's what we call them here in Sweden. And
Mm-hmm.
so they have a family, so to speak. But if you're by yourself, a pet really, really does help, whether it's a cat or a dog, but it really helps. So because you have at least something in the house besides you.
Now you bring up an interesting point. Like, how did you even research what your pet would need in order to travel internationally to different borders?
You know, I'm very lucky in that I have a friend whose sister rescues dog, and actually that's where I got my dog from. She
Okay.
rescues a lot of dogs from Spain, actually. So my dog has, yeah, she's been around too. She
Yes,
speaks
your dog has
multiple
traveled.
she, she came from Spain. So the thing of it is that she helped teach me what is needed. So like here, if you're going to have a pet abroad, you need to check if they require insurance. The pets here in Sweden have better health insurance than we do in the US.
In the US, that don't surprise me.
And you know what shots they need to have a chip. And you know, a lot of times the veterinarian will also help you get the passport. So you usually get the passport from the veterinarian. That also includes their health record. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times if you're traveling, you can kind of look at the airlines and they have good guidelines on what to do uh, when you want to travel with your pet, and like the size of your pet, how, you know, what options are available to you. So they even give you suggestions like how big, you know, if your dog is in a crate, how big the crate has to be, because the dog has to be able to completely turn around.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they give you all of those guidelines. So there's a wealth of information available either through people or the airlines. They also have pet transporters, if you can believe it. So you can always contact a pet transporter and they'll take care of all those dynamics for you. They'll pick the pet up, package them up, send them off, and then you pick them up wherever you land.
That's a fun. I've been toying with the idea of getting a pet, but I'm nervous because I still want to travel and I'm like worried, but that's a whole nother
Get a
story.
little one. A
Yeah,
little
that's what I planned
something
because I didn't want to
easy.
pick up a grown dog's stuff.
Yeah,
Fun part I want to
yeah,
do.
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So how do you think your moving abroad has changed your perspective on life?
You know, I have to say, as an American, I didn't realize how many layers of stress we all have in the US. And being an average income person, we have issues with income security, health care, misogyny on the jobs. We have, if you live in a big city, you have stress when it comes to traffic. Um, we have everybody. If you're part of a disenfranchised group, you tend to have those additional layers of stress as well. When I moved to Sweden, a lot of that stress melted away.
Mm.
First of all, their traffic, you know, coming from Chicago, their traffic wasn't not like Chicago. So I stopped cursing every day when I was driving. Um,
I'm
yeah,
laughing so hard because my road rage in DC was like clinical. I
yeah,
had
like yeah,
issues.
yeah, yeah. Like you could get out the car and body slam somebody, but here in Sweden, it's like, I mean, they have traffic, but it's not as intense. And so I found that I could drive and just be more relaxed.
Mm.
And that was relaxing. It was a cleaner environment. I could breathe better. That was better. And, you know, and being part of a community where they value the environment more, that was nice. Being a person that's employed, I was treated more like an adult. I don't know if you know, like in the US, a lot of people, if they need to take a day off, they call up, and even if it's a mental health day, you kind of fake an illness. But here, you could just simply say, you know, I need a day off.
Mm-hmm.
You have income security in the fact that the average, especially professional employment, they have to give you 2 or 3 months notice before they
To
can
go.
let you go. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, same in Germany. And so just that alone meant that you could know that you're losing your job today, but you got 3 months. And then, of course, you have unemployment insurance that you pay yourself. And that can give you up to another year and a half of 80% of your income. And if it drops down to 60% of your income. So all in all, you have around a year and a half to 2 years before your financial situation becomes critical if you don't find a job. And because they have free education, you can actually go to school and learn another skill if that's an option, if that's something you need as well. So all of these tools we don't have, it's not as easily available in the US as it is here. And I'm a person that's getting older, so that becomes even more important to have that income stability. And because we have a national healthcare system, you can change jobs. You don't have to worry about pre-existing conditions. And if you decide to become an entrepreneur, you have more of a safety net to do it, because you can transition from working to an entrepreneur and have your income available to you, as well as education available to you and healthcare. So the risks are a lot lower than in the US. So you feel like you have more tools available to keep you thriving, as opposed to systems that oppress you. Like if I could share with you, I saw a story where there was a man who became ill in California. And as a result of that illness, he eventually lost his job, which means he eventually lost his home. And he had tons of medical bills, even with medical insurance. He was living in his car. And then he was able to get employment, but the rents are so high. He was living in his car working full time. How does that even make sense? Mm-hmm. And not only that, on his credit report, it shows that he was evicted. And so that made it hard. Whereas here in Sweden, you can mess up financially, but in a year or two, you get a clean slate. So you don't have these various systems of oppression that keep you held down. You have systems that say, okay, you messed up. Okay, let's lift you back up now. Mm-hmm. So it keeps you thriving. And so that to me was the biggest difference.
Those are a whole bunch of differences, Maggie.
And not to mention the racism isn't as overt here. You have racism everywhere, but it's nowhere near as overt. I don't go to work and scared to speak in a meeting because someone will make you feel like, okay, I don't understand what you're saying. And, they listen to what you're saying. They value what you're saying. So the thing of it is that there was just a whole bunch of layers of stress that rolled off, and I feel like I can live.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know anything about Sweden. You just really blew my mind with everything. Sounds like, something really interesting. So for those individuals who are interested in moving abroad, what advice would you give them?
I would say first and foremost, take advantage of the fact that we have resources on the internet and really read through those resources. Try to visit the country that you're interested in. Try to get a feel. It's not going to be the same as if you're living here, but if you have a vacation, try to vacation and not just be a tourist, but try to, be the non-tourist, seeing the city for what it is. The second thing is look at the job market. Like, how are you earning your money? If you still require an income, if you're an entrepreneur, look at the markets, look at what it takes to become an entrepreneur. Like here in Sweden, the taxes can be high. There are a lot of regulations, so you should kind of try to at least get some high level information. If you're employed, look to see what the job market is. Don't come and think like, I'm going to get this one job and I'm going to stay forever. Look to see how easy it is to transition from one job to another.
Mhm.
So that's some of the advice. And network. I have a friend who lived in Turkey, and she used Craigslist to begin networking with people, meeting people and networking and learning more about the place that you want to call home.
Mhm. And with that, also be sure if Craigslist is something that people use in that country, because I know in Portugal,
Yes.
it is not really a place, and it's almost like a trap. And
Yeah.
so just
You know,
yeah,
I'm, I'm trying to think of other online. You know what? Meetup is a good one.
meetup is
Meetup is
yeah.
because you can meet a group of people, and it's about it. You know, a subject that you have in common, as
Mhm.
opposed to people trying to meet and date.
Right.
So that's another thing that you can do, and look up the expat community as well. That's another option.
I agree. And that's meetup.com for any of those who are listening or watching and want to know. It's
Yeah.
meetup.com. It's a great website to kind of find those groups. But this has been very enlightening. I've learned so much about being an expat in Sweden, and I definitely want to come visit. So thank you. Thank you so much for all your information.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And yeah, Sweden is a beautiful country, especially during the summer with the very long days. It's a what I think it's like a 4 hour flight, 3 or 4 hour flight from Portugal.
Mhm. I have some friends from Sweden who are in Portugal, so I keep trying to get them to take me when they go home to take me with them so I can check it out. So yeah, that's awesome. But I appreciate your time and thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, another experience is living abroad. We thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.